for the second time today. Good morning, good morning, good morning. You join me and Helen Thomas. Look, there she is. She's so quick. One sec. God, rapid. Love that. Invitation sent. Come on down. Hello?
Hello?
Hello.
Ah,
Yes. Yes.
it
Um,
worked.
Let me just get the legals out of the way. Nothing discussed on this basis session constitutes trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ Global Limited, trades PIQ or PIQ Suite, or its affiliates, including the hosts, which is obviously the amazing Helen Thomas from Blonde Money and myself, slightly less amazing, but I'm still all right. Ryan Paisley
Hmm,
from PIQ.
there he is.
Sorry, could I just firstly, I need to offer you sincere apologies for not being around last Thursday, but I think that was when I was at my worst with whatever this flu is that I've still
Mm.
struggling to shake off, it seems, but I'm getting much better.
Yes. Well, it sounds like we handed it over from one another, despite the fact we do not meet in real life. There you go.
Well, we passing ships in the Stafford in the
Yeah,
American
yeah.
bar, I think it was.
Yeah, we were.
I did throw a few texts out to some of my friends that were working there, and I was like,
Oh.
if you do see a gorgeous young blonde lady,
Oh, oh dear. That'll explain why I never got those olives I ordered.
oh, that'd be it then.
I'm joking.
Oh, hello. How are
But it's all
you?
right. I'm all right. I'm all right. Yeah, I'm fine. Well, I mean, we're getting into a very, very busy and interesting. What is it?
Aren't we
3 weeks.
just?
I mean, this is the meat of the year. People keep like talking about. I finally had those questions of what are you doing for Christmas? I'm like, Christmas. I don't even know if I'm going to get through the week.
Well, this is it. Because obviously
What
we've
are you
got the budget,
talking
we've got the
about?
UK budget, we've got US
Yeah,
elections, and anything else we can
yeah.
through. But this is why we've got you to talk us through
Wow.
it. Tell
Well,
us what's
thank you.
happened and what's
Well,
happening.
thank you. Well, actually, on the that sort of bigger picture thing, there's quite a lot flowing around, which is I'm sure everyone looking at, which is that implied volatility in the option markets is high, even with the S&P 500 hitting record highs. And basically, it should be really because of what I've just mentioned. But
Yeah.
it's a very odd environment. There was I think it was a Bank of America survey about 10 days ago or something, which um, I was asking their investor clients, in treasuries, how are you positioned for the US election? And the vast majority were saying, I'm not positioned. I'm not involved. And
Position, what position?
yeah, so that doesn't quite stack up to me because okay, people are saying, "Oh, it's very difficult, it's very close," but sometimes people bet on interest rate decisions that are very close or non-farm payrolls that are very close. But for some reason, politics, always just seems to annoy people because
Could
they don't get it.
potentially, could this
Tell me.
well, and this is me guessing completely here, but potentially, could this be that, yeah, you're not only betting or kind of having a view on the
Mm,
outcome, but then you've got the
mm,
secondary kind of gamble, which is what the
mm.
hell will they do once they're
Oh,
in?
I'm with you. Yeah, it's sort of a bigger
Yeah,
question. It's not just 1 24 hours or whatever.
yeah.
Um, although
But and also,
again,
let's be honest as well. Like, we, I'll be shocked if we know the outcome of the election in the first 4 weeks after the vote.
I don't know about that. Oh, I
Oh,
don't know.
someone
No,
thinks a bit of a landslide.
yeah. Well, I think it's going to be clear. I think there is going to be a clear outcome for sure. For a number of reasons. I mean, maybe let's talk about that then we'll go on to the UK budget. But
Yeah,
let's start with the
go on.
US, um, because Um, I mean, last time round there was supposed to be, oh my God, we'll never know. And I think it was 2 or 3 days. And I mean, Wisconsin was the key, basically.
Yeah,
Biden winning Wisconsin meant he'd won. And that was then even apparently when it was going to be very close and very difficult. Secondly, since then, a lot of states have tightened up on their way they count and what constitutes a recount and the way that you can vote. So, although there is a lot of this mail in and early voting, that actually, for a number of places, speeds up the ballot processes. Actually, this is anecdote, but relevant. Someone I know who voted in Florida, there's a website you go to where you can track the status of your vote, and literally you see the thing where you're like received the ballot, sent the ballot back, the state received my ballot, and then it showed counted. Now, that is a bit again, it varies exactly what they mean by that. They're kind of it does vary by state to state, but the point being that they've got their administrative processes lined up, like
Right.
ready to go. So
So,
it
so
works. So there's
you're saying that I shouldn't have on my usual election long lawyers trade.
yeah, this time around, no, I don't think you do need
Oh,
that.
okay, okay.
I
I'll
don't
take
think
your
you
word
need that.
for it.
So there's that, and then beyond the sort of administrative processes, there is the fact of the polls and the momentum. Rather, I think that's what I always look at is momentum. It's not like, well, someone's
Absolutely,
at
I'm with you there.
49.1%, someone's at 49.8% in the polls. It's very clear that we've basically over these last 6 months, it was Biden wasn't even in with a chance because he was so patently literally not capable of doing the job, even to his own voters. You
Yeah,
then, like I think last time, I think we talked about it like it's like football, and like the 89th minute, they
yeah,
substituted. So finally, and then, that person actually ran around a bit and put some shots on goal, and it was like, oh, we've got a chance now. We just need a bit more injury
and then they
time.
concede another one.
Yeah. Or I actually think it's what I see from Kamala Harris is exhaustion now. She seems to really be struggling with. I mean, she's never been that good at. She's doing what I'm doing now. Using a lot of words, being very inarticulate, struggling with answers,
I
and
struggle with the English language. Let's be
and
honest.
you know what? There is. It does take a toll on people. It is very hard to have to do something like you and I are just doing now, but on the eyes of the whole world, and it matters. Whereas you and me
Yeah,
chatting doesn't really
yeah,
matter.
exactly.
And
Yeah, I see what you're
it
saying there.
it
Yeah, that's
taxes you
fair.
in the end, and every politician has their strength. So some politicians are absolutely brilliant with a prepared statement to the country on a lectern. Some politicians are brilliant one on one or on the campaign trail meeting voters. Each one
Kissing
of them has that.
babies.
Yes, each one of them, and the best ones, the ones that have been the most iconic, tend to be the ones that are obviously routinely good in all circumstances. So people are left with these favourable and charismatic memories of them. I
Yeah,
mean, um, of course, famously, Obama's strength was that rhetoric, which is important when a lot of the way someone communicates is up on a stage and holding an audience. So,
yeah.
anyway, I think so. I think what's happening is Kamala Harris is exhausted, exposing her weaknesses. There's one very good piece I read recently. I will send you the link, Ryan, and
Please
you
do,
can
please do.
tweet it out. I might even be able to do it while I'm wibbling away. But basically, suggesting that what had happened strategically for Harris was that when she took over, she didn't break with what Biden had done. She kind of just didn't want to talk about it. She was like, I'm
Yeah,
the new person. I'm new. I'm not him. And I'm new.
yeah.
And I'm
That was
definitely not the
basically
other guy.
her
That's
unique
the
selling
pitch.
point was I'm not Biden,
Yeah. Now,
which
the
I can do that to be
problem,
fair,
yeah, the
because
problem
I'm
with
not
that
Biden.
is 4 years where voters have, like, a lot of them, number one, when you ever ask voters, what's your problem, what you're annoyed about, it's the economy, it's cost of living, understandably, because inflation is extremely painful for everyone, even though people get pay rises, but they find when they're trying to move house, it's more expensive. When they fill up the car, it's more expensive, etc. So what happens then is people go, yeah, 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 we know you're new. Okay, we got to know you a bit, but but what are you going to do differently? And then if you haven't said at the start, oh well, you know what, yay, thanks, Joe, but actually I didn't like three of these things you did. It's very hard to pivot in the
Yeah,
last few weeks if you're running out of momentum.
yeah.
Because
Because
what else? What
it
new are you
seems a
going to
bit.
say?
Gets to kind of towards desperation a little bit when you go a
Yes,
bit like the longer you leave it, it's one of those just rip the plaster off kind of thing.
yes, and
And
it actually, yeah, dogged Rishi Sunak as well, actually, over Liz Truss. So he could have just said,
yeah.
could have buried her, and then he didn't, and then it was a struggle. Go on.
Well, the thing is, well, like, funny, the interesting thing you say about, like, she seems to like, sorry, Kamala Harris seems to be like flagging when she's doing her speeches and stuff. I think 100% you're seeing that because you're also seeing kind of they're getting more and more desperate. Like this whole, I don't, again, we're very apolitical on here. You can vote whoever you want to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We don't care. We don't care.
Yes,
Honestly, I could not give a damn. But you can't call Trump on like when you're doing a massive kind of speech to her. You can't call Trump Hitler, which is what she did yesterday or the day before. It's like, I'm sorry, but you just don't. That is, well, one, it's incredibly disrespectful, and also it's just lazy. It is the like, what
Yeah,
else can we say about him? Oh, let's just say he's like Hitler.
I
It's
know.
it's.
I
I think
really kind of heard that yesterday. I thought, oh dear.
yeah, it's like there's just so much. You can be so much more progressive. You can be so much more productive in how you take apart your opposition. You don't
Well,
resort to like anyway.
well, it's a sixth form debate thing,
Hmm.
isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Almost
Exactly.
always, almost everyone always says if you started to bring up Hitler, then you've lost it.
Yeah.
But the, but it, yeah, what it smacks of there in the terms of political campaign strategy that you is that exactly that point that you, because you failed to sell yourself as a in your new way of doing things, you have to go back to, oh, but don't vote for the other person. And the other element of it is you're shoring up your core vote, because
Yeah.
what that's really intended to do is inflame your, like, people go, look, you might not like me, you might be sick of Biden, you might have had enough, but for God's sake, don't let the other guy in. He's a
Yeah.
nightmare.
Yeah.
But
Right.
the other rule of political campaigning is as soon as you make it about the other person, you give them all the oxygen. So
Yes.
that was part of Hillary Clinton's problem back in 2016, where she spent a long time talking about Trump and how awful he was and the deplorables and, the debate and even if you're slagging them off and even if it chimes with voters, the whole framing of the entire campaign is about that person. It's just not about you.
No.
So anytime you see that happen, where any political campaign is about the opponent or about one, if it's all about one person, then that's the person who's got the advantage. So yeah,
And
it's
that kind of is that's a nice little segue. Well, check this out for a segue. That
ooh,
is indicated by the latest odds on Betfair and Polymarket.
yay!
Yeah.
There we
So
go. Our favourite thing. Yeah,
yeah.
tell us where it
So
is
on
now, Ryan.
Betfair, it's let me just double check before I say it and completely get it wrong. Yeah, it's 1.7 on Donald Trump
Well,
and 2.44 on Harris.
ooh,
We've now
wow,
hit the magical £100 million pound matched on
wow.
that bet. You will see for any US listeners or any people that have heard about the poly market in
Yes.
Kaishi or Kaushi. Yeah, obviously they're big players now in the US. And one thing I will say is that and I've got to be careful because we actually have poly market odds on the platform, but I'd
Mhm.
rather be honest. Um, be careful when you hear about the matched bets and stuff like that, because one thing to bear in mind is the difference between Betfair and things like Polymarket is Betfair is cash and it's all very regulated. Things like Polymarket and stuff, you can use crypto and stuff, so there is certain people say, oh, yeah, it's just money laundering going through and stuff like that. So look, I'm just flagging that as a disclaimer, so you can't. I wouldn't read their matched
Mm,
numbers as gospel. People wanting to gamble on that market. There might be other
that's
reasons,
a
factors.
good point. I'm
There
very
you
glad
go.
you mentioned that because I think we haven't, have we not spoken since, since Polymarket. Basically there was a, what was it? There was a legal challenge, wasn't there, which said you can't bet in these markets, and then that got
Yeah,
lifted. It got lifted, didn't it, about two
yeah,
weeks ago?
yeah, because them and Kalshi were, rightly so celebrating because that's a massive market for massive markets.
Well, what I couldn't
Or
believe was actually, can you see? I don't know if you can see what's actually been, as you say, allegedly matched or well matched on these markets. But we're talking $2 billion or something on Polymarket. It's
yeah,
massive.
well, just on Kamala, because I've just got the Kamala Harris
Oh yeah.
market up in front of me. So at the moment she's got a 40% chance of winning according to Polymarket. Just on her, there's $500 million matched dollars.
Wow.
It's
Whoa.
massive. It is massive.
I
So
couldn't believe it because when I saw,
oh,
I was just I was just gobsmacked. But the thing about the poly market that's super interesting, well, there's some stuff on Twitter floating around about who, there's like some maybe big whales who've been betting, or are they real, are they, as you say, got other aims? But there's certainly been a big move on that market. It made its way into
oh,
Wall Street Journal article. Oh, can you hear me?
hello. Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you. We can all hear you. Hang on, let me see if I can send him a message. uh
Dum dum dum.
I can hear you.
Oh, one sec. I appear to have dropped off. Let me see if I
Well,
can
I can hear you.
reconnect. Hang on.
Oh, I could fill for him, but then it might seem weird.
Hello.
There he is. Hello. Oh, I can.
Right. Sorry, but I don't know what happened there.
It's all right. It was funny because we could. Well, I could still hear you through the entirety of that. So,
Oh, well, I'm glad I didn't say
thankfully,
anything rude then, because I think my
yeah,
phone.
exactly, exactly. I was going to say about Polly Market, who obviously this big move where Trump has gained a lot of ground, as you just said. Kamala Harris is around 40% odds on there now,
Yeah.
whereas Trump's at 60%, obviously. Um, that there's an interesting element here about the other thing that's important about campaigning is momentum. So it's sort of like the feel of who's got the momentum. Now we know from those other things we've just discussed that there is momentum behind Trump, but the size and scale of that market is contributing its own kind of momentum to it.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's
I
certainly
think,
generated a lot of headlines.
yeah, exactly, exactly, and it's sort of all part of the same story, really. And so I think that people will probably continue. Well, no, they will continue to monitor that market. I mean, Trump mentioned it in one of his speeches, didn't he? He said something like Polly something or other." It's just, it was.
Was that a Welsh accent you were trying?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, sorry. Don't try it. Don't try it, Helen. Anyway, anyway, anyway. Yeah. Well, it looks like basically, we're running into this final. What? God, 2 weeks, and it's the upshot is, so we've done our analysis on the winnability of each state,
Right.
and the you may have heard this many times. It is very much true that the electoral college votes, the way they are structured, does tend to favour the Republican candidate, and certainly does favour Trump. But the key point, if you add up all the numbers, is that Trump, of the three like Rust Belt seats, so Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Trump only needs to win one. Kamala Harris needs to win two. Now, so that's sort of the way it's all kind of stacked towards Trump, and the analysis and the polling currently shows Trump is about 2 percentage points ahead in Michigan. It's closer in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, but he doesn't need those. He just needs Michigan, and Michigan, for those who remember or look at these things back in the beginning of the year when there were primaries about Joe Biden for the Democratic candidate, which was obviously kind of a bit of a he was the only real candidate, to be honest. It was not like he wasn't going to get chosen, but in protest at Biden's stance on Israel in Michigan, 13% of uh, Democrats went for an uncommitted candidate rather than Biden to protest against his stance in Gaza and Israel and points on that. So Michigan has had a rocky road over the last year
So,
with
question for
Democrats.
a betting slash trading
Mm,
with my betting slash trading hat on. So Trump basically, so if Trump gets Michigan, like the chances of him becoming president just ramp up, right?
yep.
Do we know, or I say, do we know? Because I certainly don't. Do you know what sort of time in the evening or early morning to
Oh,
get Michigan?
I'm going to be honest and say I haven't got that yet, but that is on my to do list. So I will hopefully know by next week. I'll certainly know before the election.
But like
You,
just from my varied history of like trading political markets and stuff, or trading financial markets during election nights and gambling markets during election nights and stuff like that. One thing, if listeners are kind of thinking, well, hang on, where do I start? It's very, very easy to get caught up in the noise of all the
yes.
updates that come through.
Yeah.
And there will be a gazillion notes,
Yeah.
research notes being put out by everyone saying, look, this state should do this, it should be this. There's a million different sites out there with live tracking of live vote counts and stuff like that. It is very, very easy to suffer paralysis by analysis.
Mhm.
Trust me on this one. One thing I would do, again, unless you know what you're doing, but you do still want to punt, is pick, like Wisconsin, like Helen's just said, pick some key states, find out when they report, and literally just focus on them. You're going to watch the market.
Mm.
The market will whipsaw and seesaw in front of you for hours before the result that you're looking for. It just happened. This
Yeah.
get used to it. But sit on your hands, because the worst thing you can do is get sucked in to trading something that you haven't prepped for, or a state that you're not really aware of, or you don't really know what the
Mm.
implications are. You end up stopping yourself out. You end up doing your ass before the moment that you were waiting for, and it would have been a nice clean rally or a clean sell-off. Just so literally, it's always wise to leave money on the table in nights like this, because there is no way you're not going to walk away with your P&L being the highest it was all through the night. That you will have chop. So bit of a
Very, very sensible health warning. Very, very
there you
true. And
go. That's my
it may even.
quota. That's my quota of kind of sensible for the week.
Oh, well, it's important for people. And also, when you do pick that state, it'll be I'm afraid you should check things like, how many absentee ballots are there? Are they getting recounted first? Are we going to hear from a particular city
Yeah,
first? And is that city very Democrat or something?
yeah, exactly that, right?
It, it's so because the thing about the TV, as we know, is that they're desperate to
This is it.
create any excitement,
This is
and
it.
they're all biased to their candidates, and
Yeah, and it's funny you should
it's a
say
mess.
city. So, like, for instance, a really good example that I use when I'm trying to explain people about this is Brexit. So Brexit for me was quite a good evening trading, to say the least. And
Good.
basically, I prepped and I did so much prep, and I wasted days, weeks putting everything together. Like, this is exactly what's going to happen. Obviously, as soon as the election starts, as soon as the night starts, all bets are off. The old Mike Tyson, everyone's got a plan until you punch in the face. However, I did have big letters on a post-it note stuck on the screen: trade the Sunderland result.
Oh, very good.
And it was
Very good.
Sunderland was expected to be Remain, and and it
Yes.
was obviously a staunch Labour constituency as well, and obviously that factored into it, and all of this, and everything I read was like, if Sunderland go Brexit or vote for Brexit, there
Yeah.
will be Brexit, and that
Yeah.
was it. And literally, my weeks of prep and trading and all this kind of boiled down to, just as it started, I was like, do you know what, this is just too much to handle. I'm just going to focus on Sunderland, and God, I did, because I would have done my absolute nuts if I'd have messed around. And instead, I had a very good evening. So there you go. Learn from
No.
me. Please learn from one of my
Yeah.
upside
Yeah.
stories,
Yeah.
on my
Well.
downside stories.
Yeah. Exactly. Learn from those who have gone before. Oh, and yeah. I mean, and you've got the betting markets jump around,
Yeah, exactly.
alongside the
Well,
currency market. And anyway, yeah, it's going to be well, it's going to be it's going to be good. It's going to be there are going to be opportunities. So
so, in
we
terms
might.
of, so talking just quickly, obviously, because we do talk about markets as well as politics here. So in terms of markets to trade, right?
Mm,
So obviously, standard S&P and dollar, whatever.
mm,
One market that I believe personally might be getting a tad overlooked, and I think it could provide some quite decent moves, is the
mm.
peso. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw,
Absolutely.
I can't remember who it was. I believe it might have been Goldman's or someone put out a note last week. That basically was talking about the implied vol of the peso just over that week, or the 2 weeks, and it's significantly more elevated than pretty much any other currency pair in terms of, like,
Mm,
week, in terms of that kind of that kink. Um, and yeah,
mm,
it makes perfect sense, because some of the stuff that Trump's been saying is been pretty bad for Mexico, in terms of kind of these huge 200% tariffs on kind of cars and farm machinery and stuff like that. So, if you are looking for a market to trade, or at least one of the
mm.
markets to have up, because we all have markets up that we don't actually trade, but we like to keep an eye on, I definitely have
Yeah.
go up.
Agreed. That was a big one in 2016. I remember through the
Yeah,
night as well. You've got to think about liquidity as well. But actually, dollar mex in the night, well, in our night time in the UK,
yeah,
isn't too bad, like compared to some others. So
exactly. So 6M on CME, if anyone's listening, especially if CME are listening.
yeah.
Shameless plug, shameless plug.
Right. Well, nice, nice. Well, we could always do a US election preview. Very happy to
I
do
think we
that
do.
as
I
a
think we need to.
quick blast, even on the day, maybe even on the day.
That's exactly why I'm thinking,
Um.
from the pub.
Yeah.
What else we got?
Right.
We got time to talk about the
Yeah.
UK?
We do have a few minutes left to talk about the UK, where the key fresh bit of information actually came out overnight with a Guardian article saying that bear with me. This is a bit techie.
Do you know what?
Rachel.
I'm so glad you said it, because Michael Brown had to tackle this as well. And also
Oh,
Zach, who's listening in, actually posted a very good little piece on it. But yeah, go.
I saw that. That is very good. Yeah, basically, uh, Rachel Reeves will classify what is the public debt as something called the public net financial liabilities. That means instead of just debt, you can offset it with some assets. But the upshot of that means she's going to have more fiscal headroom. So she's got more space to borrow under those terms. That's the upshot. I don't know. Michael Brown probably said it far more
No,
detailed
no,
than
not
me,
at
but
all. I would never say that.
the upshot. That's the
Um,
upshot. So the
but
upshot is she's got more to play with.
here's the problem I have, right?
Mm.
I'm all for more fiscal headroom. Love it. Love it. Love having money to invest. But I am scared rigid by what the Labour Party, what the Treasury deem as
Mm.
as good things to invest in.
Oh, now
It's all
you've
right,
hit
it's
on
all right having a
something.
load of money, but if you don't know how to spend it,
Yeah,
yeah,
there you go.
we already hear the unions lining up, and this is the whole idea for this was like, if we do, I believe it was someone said a little while ago, one of the it might even been Reeves herself or someone in the Treasury said, if we do move the goalposts, any money that we free up will be solely invested in infrastructure and
Mm.
in terms of proper ways to bring in more investment into the country. Now,
Yes.
obviously, how you interpret investment in infrastructure is quite a lot.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not such a leap to imply investment in infrastructure means more wages for train drivers. Like
Yes.
you could get that, you could get there, and they have been very
Yeah.
picky with their wording already, right? So my concern
Yeah.
is, yes, I'm all for having more money to spend, but I am a little bit concerned that they might not be spending it prudently.
So, Ryan, the government have thought of your scepticism, and they're going to say, oh, we're going to use some independent bodies to
Oh,
check
God.
this. So there's like the National Audit Office, which checks about value for money, which all these things already exist. They're supposed to say, look at things like, the Elizabeth line. What was is that? Let's start the project. How much is it going to cost? How much is it going to benefit? Is it going to bring?
The problem with these kind of bodies is that they put their report out 5 years after the event.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
oh yeah, thanks. We've already closed
Well,
these places.
also they or they are wildly out of whack with the reality. Some of that is just fair enough. So, for example, if 5 years ago you planned an infrastructure project, you didn't know there was going to be a pandemic and then a war where inflation would go through the roof. So,
Yeah,
the costs of
absolutely.
everything have gone up. So I'm always skeptical about these uh,
It
bodies that are
feels like
supposed to
throwing money to like,
spotted.
yeah, it feels like I hate these kind of things, to be honest. It's like throwing loads more money at someone to write a report that's 5 years later that tells you what you already knew 4 years before that. It does feel a little
Yeah.
bit like those kind of bodies to kind of improve efficiencies always just seem to add inefficiencies.
I hear you. And I mean, the other element to this extra money that this will uncover is that apparently she's not going to use it all. So that's supposed to be a signal. Oh, look, I'm tempted, but or I won't be. I could be tempted, but I won't because I'm not going to. I'm not going to max it out to start with. In fact, the guy that you retweeted who's looked at this had a very good way of describing it. Like, someone who needs a credit card and instead of getting a £2,000 limit gets 10,000 and says it's all right, don't worry, I won't use it all. I've
Yeah,
got it there,
yeah,
but
but
I won't.
then you see a couple of nice holidays and
A new
one
car.
round of drinks at the Stafford, and
Yeah, but that is exactly it. You've really she's trying to show credibility to a skeptical audience, and if she might have done better if she hadn't done that huge pay rise to train drivers, as you say. Now she had to do that in her mind because that was going to remove industrial action from the OBR forecasts, which meant she'd have better growth numbers, which means she'd have more money to play with down the line.
okay,
So that's all of what she's done so far, and this is where it's slightly gone wrong for her. All of what she's done so far is actually the audience for it is the OBR.
right,
So
okay, I see what
so when she did public sector pay, that was as I say, settle industrial action and increase the growth profile. On the flip side, with the winter fuel payment that I just discovered, eligibility for the winter fuel payment is calculated in the middle of September. That's
Mhm.
the one. There's 1 week a year. So what happens is the last public sector debt number, which came out I think 2 days ago, included this in September. So actually, it was a bigger number. I think it was bigger than expected. The PSNBR. It could have been worse if she hadn't done the winter fuel thing, because that actually said we're cutting off
Oh, hang on.
that money.
Oh, so this is actually
I know.
not that I should be shocked because obviously everything you said is
No.
incredibly intriguing. This is actually
Mm.
quite massive then. So basically, what you're saying is everything that we've had so far has basically been financial engineering to boost this number that we're now talking about.
That's a yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to. That sounds a bit pejorative, but it's been how can I say? Um, what's the word? Playing within the
Yes.
rules of the
Yeah. Oh no.
game
Yeah.
to
I'm not saying
the
anything untoward, but
colouring inside the lines,
yes.
I
But
suppose,
I suppose
right up to the edge.
that
Yeah.
that is, well, for me, who's been sitting here for the last few months thinking they actually have no idea what they're doing. They might actually know what they're doing. I might just not agree with it.
Exactly,
I think
exactly,
that is a big difference to kind of thing. It's
and
all right. It's all right calling someone stupid, but that's one thing. But if it's just because you don't agree with what they're doing, then it's a
then
slightly
that's
different
yeah.
framing.
Slightly different argument. It is. And then the investment summit that everyone was like, why are you doing that before the budget? Well, she did that before the budget for the same reason. So she can say, oh, look,
Mm.
we've got £63 billion pledged here. So look, OBR, because we're stable and secure in this big new government, we're going to get all this extra investment. So you need to look at your assumptions over investment into the country and show that all that extra investment is going to come and it is going to raise growth, and they do love us and we're doing a great job. Um, so it had to happen before the budget. Um,
See,
even
to
though,
be honest, I love this little thing I've learned today. I'm going to be using. I will be overusing it for the rest of the week. I think that's brilliant.
there you go,
So,
feel free. But
so
they
for
but
Margaret's
that is,
then, so
but their problem with that is, as we've found, that's all very well economically to face the OBR with the hope that next week you're going to unveil, sorry, a huge, amazing construction of brilliant stuff. That's where you hope it's going to be taken. But in the interim, the last 3 months, the politics is terrible,
yeah,
and even your own colleagues hate what you've done. And I mean, some Labour people have now saying, well, given what Rachel Reeves has done to date, she could never hope to be prime minister because people will never forgive her for some of what she's already done.
yeah, yeah.
So
This is it, right? So,
this is, it doesn't come without a cost. This sort of.
linking segue to markets. Obviously, 'cause we saw the gilt
Hmm.
cap this morning. Do you think?
Yeah, how much have they moved? Can you give me? Have you got them on your screen?
Zach might be able
Where's
to
the
jump.
10 year?
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. I haven't actually. The only chart I've
Fine.
seen is what Zach posted. So Zach is there.
Oh, fine.
So do you think this could be like the start of more to come, or do you think this is just headline driven noise?
I think that the volatility for this budget will be coming, yeah, now in the next, like, I think it's going to get very jumpy running into it. I think it's going to be sell the rumour, buy the fact on gilts.
Right.
So the yields will go up, the price will go down, there'll be wobbly worries, and then she will say something very well researched, very sensible. Okay, I could borrow up to this much, I'm not going to. You were all worried about loads of tax rises. Well, I've done like 75% of what you thought I would, and some people have escaped unharmed. And isn't it great? And there'll be like a sigh of relief on the day itself. But then we've got a longer term issues over some of the things we've just discussed, which
Yeah.
is it really credible? Um, so yeah, we'll find out that. But yes, I think there's going to be more of this wobbling around about a lot of these kind of. I think there'll be more headlines because the other element is there's going to be the final forecast round for the OBR is tomorrow. Um, so if anyone in politics has got a sniff of something in this they don't like, they might sort of try and leak it to push like don't put this in, don't
Right,
put this
got
particular
you, got
thing
you.
in.
Yeah, like try and force some hands. On Michael Brown's
Yeah.
reply, thank you very much. Gilt's up
Oh,
1.3 basis points to 4.21%. Intraday high was 4.27 early doors.
wow. So it has settled a little bit. Interesting. Okay. Well, I would say that is a. I guess yeah. I mean, it's a decentish move, isn't it? Really on on this. Well, the stupid thing is you can't technically really say anything about it because obviously you're supposed to announce all of this in one go to
Yeah,
Parliament on the day. Here we go.
but
I've talked to the OBR. Let me explain in a very boring, long technical note what public sector net financial liability actually means. Everyone goes to sleep at that point.
yeah, yeah, right.
And the geeks like me have to read it, and then the gilt market will judge if it sounds credible. But before then, there's a vacuum. So
Yes.
yeah, it sounds like the weak side on gilts will be down in price, up in yield.
I do wonder to an extent, kind of, like, as you said before, about that survey that was done by Bank of America. I think it was Bank of America, so I think I might have
Yes.
read it as well. About people, what's your position in treasuries going into the election? I have no position. I wouldn't be surprised if there's, people that don't have to have gilts coming into this because,
Yeah.
so look, and let's be very honest, there are the biggest players in gilts have to have gilts because we're like they're mandated. So we're talking about lifers and pensions
Yeah.
like that. So these guys and gems all that lot, they have to trade gilts. They have to be in the market. But there's significant people out there that don't have to be in the market, and you wouldn't blame them for not being in the market right now.
Well, sort of. But this. Sorry to finish. This is where I get frustrated, but also the fact gives me a reason to have a business, which is there's loads of great opportunities to trade politics. The outcome of the US election is not completely uncertain and totally unknown.
Yeah,
The outcome that what this budget is not completely uncertain and totally unknown. A bit of analysis and thinking around it, I reckon, gives you those opportunities.
yeah,
Well, if you care to look, like, okay, you don't have to be involved in gilts, but if you really wanted to, and you were a big fund and you wanted to just get in and short it and thought that was the way to go, why not? Or
yeah.
the other way around, or thought,
Well,
somebody thought this morning then at 4.27 that was overdone and it was going to go back up, and
yeah,
they were right.
yeah. No, exactly that. One thing that I will say though is, funny enough, me and Michael Brown mentioned this yesterday on the Morning Blast. That oh no, so it might have even been the day before that. That we all know that kind of Thanksgiving's coming up and Halloween, and not
Mm.
only that, but we've got the election coming up. So, we made the argument that there's a good chance of not much business will get done, like between books settling up now before the election, US election. Then are people really going to come back to the market between election and new
Mm.
Thanksgiving? Potentially not. And then I made the case to Michael that we could see, it's not out of the realms of possibility that we could see that all these big desks and stuff in the States, and a lot of them, the S&P's had a great year, so a lot of them have made a lot of money. Literally a week before the election, take their hedge their books, at least not take their order, not take the positions off, but at least hedge their books, and that's then done now till the new year. Because we know that these big desks like to book
Mm.
winning years. They like to
Yes.
have an early
Yes.
December, an early Christmas break. But are you really going to come back to the market and start throwing around some size between election and Thanksgiving? Probably not. You'd be stupid if you did. Are you then going to say, well, actually, after Thanksgiving, we've had a great year. Let's just have a break. Let's stick the intern on the desk.
I think, yeah, I think that is right. I think there's going to be a lot less liquidity as a result of that. So, on the flip side, if you want to trade moves, you will get them.
Yeah,
It,
I think that's exactly it. I think
but so it will be one of those sort of thin.
Finn and
Oh, that's
Wispy.
from. Do you remember what people used to say? There was a guy on the
I
desk. He
was
used to
thinking
say,
Finn and Wispy like Michael Brown's Barnet, to be honest.
"Oh no, I used to hear." Oh, a guy on the desk in FX. Sorry, we have to end it like this. A guy on the desk next to me used to say, "Thin and whippy like my old chap."
Oh
Anyway,
God! Oh no!
forgive me. We should end there.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm so glad that it's you with the smut and not me, to be honest. Oh,
And with
on
that,
that
I
note,
leave you.
I will ask you guess what. I know the answer to one of them. Trump or Harris is obviously still Trump.
Trump, yes.
Perfect. And right, I tell you, I'm looking at Rachel Reeves in a different light after this. This has been a great little insight about what you're saying about financial engineering. Anyway, so
Mm.
since how's Labour performing? -5, +5's your range. What are we saying? I think you were -3 2 weeks
Oh,
ago.
well, I'm going to stick at -3. The one thing I want to leave you with,
Oh,
actually, is the story about election interference, which we didn't cover.
oh yes.
But
This
keep
very
an
quickly.
eye
Yeah, go on.
keep an eye. So a Labour, the head of Labour operations, as she called herself on LinkedIn, said, "I've got 10 spots available for us to go over and campaign for Kamala Harris." Now the Trump campaign has brought a legal case saying this is election interference, because the fact she said I have 10 spots available made it sound like it was funded by the party, you know, that
Yes.
there was like resources being
Someone is
allocated to
definitely
it.
paying for this, right? It's just who.
Obviously, the Labour Party is saying, no, 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 it's all fine. They're all just volunteers doing it in their own time, which is allowed. But the one fly in the ointment, let's see if anything happens with this story, but it's being reported that Morgan McSweeney, who is Keir Starmer's chief of staff, took over after Sue Gray left, won that battle. He was paid for by the Labour Party. He went to the Democratic National Convention. He is saying, "Oh no, I didn't talk to them about campaigning." I mean, this is after him being instrumental in a campaign that led Labour to their, big victory. So
Yeah.
interesting to see how far or if that story runs, because then that would be an issue. Now it probably would only end up with a fine for the party, but it's a bit of a mess all
Yeah,
round.
yeah. And do you really want to be fighting against very openly fighting against Trump, and then Trump becomes president? How is that going to be?
Well, yeah, and obviously, if the government had been doing absolutely brilliantly and
Yeah.
everything was going great, it wouldn't matter. But the
But they're
fact that
not.
they struggle so hard, they're struggling so hard with communications, is just yet another. What can I say? Like it's almost another unforced error. They seem to make a lot of unforced errors.
Okay, yeah, so exactly that, and just I know we are massively over time now, but just because you've mentioned it in terms of miscommunications and unforced errors and not seeing how things can be read or looked at. Keir Starmer apparently is livid that criminals he was setting free early, on Snapchat or getting videos and all photos taken by the media and stuff, leaving the prisons, cheering and saying "Cheers, Keir," and being picked up in Rolls Royce Cullens and Ferraris and Lamborghinis. And he's livid about that, right? But what did you think would happen?
I know.
Did you think these people would come out of prison with head down and like just shirk off? Of course not. It's
I
like
know.
why can't they
No,
just be normal?
it's it's important that, because it shows yet again that Keir Starmer has disdain for the media, and that is going to be a hard position for him to continue to hold, because
Yeah,
the media, you've got to love them or hate them, you've got to work with them. And in
I'm
fact, as
I'm
a politician, they are the means of your message. So
it's exactly
use them.
that. Like, I'm still not. I need to find if there's a proper market, which I will do for next week. But I'm convinced that Keir Starmer doesn't last the full term.
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. Keep
There you
pushing.
go. Heard it here for all that bombshell.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
Well, look,
thank
Helen,
you.
thank you so. We do need to actually meet up at some point and have
I
maybe.
know.
Well, we don't even have to do a blast. We'll just meet up for a beer, but that'd do. Anyway, but honestly, thank you so much as always. It's
Thank
incredibly
you.
insightful, even more so than usual. I really enjoyed this one. And
Good.
listeners, thank you so much. Obviously, this goes out on YouTube. I think it's also going out on Spotify now. But yeah,
Oh,
if you are trading, as always, keep it tight. For myself, goodbye. Helen, thank you again. Thank you. And yeah, we will see you next week.
take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye bye.